And joining us to discuss this topic further is Mr. Mykola Riabchuk, political analyst. Good morning, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So now, President Zelenskyy, while he was there at that Three Seas Initiative summit in Vilnius, we know he signed a security agreement with Latvia, but Ukraine also plans on signing one with Lithuania. So now, what does this mean for the war-torn Ukraine?
First of all, it means Ukrainian presence on the international screen, because now we have a moment when many countries, many people are tired and fatigued with all this seemingly endless war, and there is very big risk that Ukraine would be forgotten. So, any presence on the international arena is important. And of course, we have the best allies in the Baltic states, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, the countries which have first-hand experience with Russian imperialism and who are the strongest supporters of Ukraine, of course.
Right, and also now having that in mind, how do you think that now these new pacts might impact Ukraine's ability to defend itself? Do you think that it will impact Ukraine in any way?
Well, of course, first of all, it has rather symbolical meaning because all these countries are not superpowers. They have very limited capacity, but they are strongly committed. And in terms of percentage of GDP, their support is the biggest for Ukraine. But of course, they are too small and cannot be decisive. So symbolical meaning is first most important, I feel. But also, of course, this network of security connection, security guarantees, security agreements has some cumulative effect. And of course, it's also in this regard it's important as something that is summed up.
So now let's have a look at Ukraine's internal situation and some issues. We know that recently President Zelenskyy's ratings have been dipping a bit. And now just recently he signed into law a new conscription law, which now has lowered that age of draft from 27 to 25. Do you think that will in any way influence his ratings back in Ukraine?
Yes, of course, it's important. This law was long due and was delayed, unfortunately, but now it's passed, and of course it would facilitate mobilization. Of course, Ukraine has very limited resources, also human resources are very limited. It's a much smaller population there compared to Russia, and of course, Ukrainian government tries to spare soldiers, to spare people, much more, of course, than Russian. But it's important, and of course, it's also important not only in terms of mobilizing new men, but also giving some prospects, some chances for their current soldiers to take a rest, or maybe even to be demobilized, depending on the situation. But this prospect is very important because, as some commentators in Ukraine argue, it's very important to consider army as not a one-way ticket. People have to be mobilized, but also need to have this prospect, some chances to finish their career, to come back home for holidays, for the rest, or completely to be demobilized. So it's really important.
It's really crucial what you're saying, and also it's important to underline the fact that obviously now these soldiers have been there for more than 2 years and have been defending the country in the trenches for more than 2 years. In fact, when I was in Ukraine, I believe last year in January, when Bakhmut was besieged, and I talked to the people in the trenches in Bakhmut, or in Bakhmut, also in the vicinity, all of them mentioned that, well, obviously we want to defend our country, but it's impossible to stay sane and also defend the country while being sane and not having at least a bit of time off in order to recuperate just ever so slightly. So having that in mind, now on the other hand, we do have now the conscription age lowered to 25, which means that we can add up to some 50,000 troops to the military, according to the analysts. However, still these issues remain sensitive because some of the young men we are talking about are now outside of Ukraine. So how does now Zelenskyy's administration plan to operate around this, knowing especially now that it might also impact, well, his popularity?
Of course, it may be harmful for his popularity, but I believe that even more harmful can be some, kind of injustice when some people get a kind of free riding, and this is more important, more crucial, I believe, because generally Ukrainians understand that we have to resist, we have to fight, and basically people do not reject this need, do not deny, but there is some, feeling among many people that there is this, procedure of mobilization is unjust because some people are picked up and some people are left free and even are allowed to go outside and so on. So social justice in this case is very, very much needed. It's a very sensitive issue. And I believe that popularity of government largely depends on this, on just solutions of these issues. So I believe it's a big challenge, of course, for any government to introduce some unpopular things. But I feel that the most important is, of course, to introduce these measures justly, evenly, equally, for the same rules for all, I would say.
So now, still staying on the topic of Ukraine's internal issues, we know that EU leaders have said that in order to join the European Union, Ukraine must carry out certain reforms. What is the current stage? What do we know about these reforms that are being implemented or that still have to be implemented?
Well, of course, it's a very long process, and it would last for years, I believe. But my feeling, my notice is that government tries to do this. They do their best, and they implemented a lot of reforms, much more than ever before that. So, in this regard, of course, we can tell about some success. But it's never is enough, Even in the countries which are already in the European Union, there are still some things which should be fixed, should be improved, and Ukraine has this very long process ahead. But I'd like to emphasize that reforms are very important and very, very intensively implemented. So we have really very, very good roadmap, and in particular in regard of rule of law, in regard of law agencies, it's really I would say sea change going on in Ukraine.
Right, so there's always room for perfection, right? Like with everything in life. Of course, we are all hoping that Ukraine does join the EU and NATO as soon as possible. Mr. Mykola Riabchuk, political analyst, thank you very much for speaking to us here on TVP World this morning.
Thank you.